in talking to Anthony Jennings, it was really interesting to hear him. I kind of asked him, there were 3 linebackers last year, and him, McGrone, and McMillan, who all missed the season, and he talked about how hard it was for him. It was the first time in his life he wasn't playing, or since he was very young, that he wasn't playing football in the fall, and it was kind of difficult for him, and he knew he had to use that time. And apparently, him and Raekwon McMillan got really close, and they would watch the games together at each other's houses, and they studied together, and they trained together. And those are 2 guys. We've talked a lot about Raekwon. Anthony Jennings actually gotten off to a really good start to this camp. It's kind of been quiet, but he's been good. So that's an interesting, it's kind of a neat relationship. Just a cool, I don't know how much it relates to football that the 2 of them got close. Like, they're obviously playing well. That's a football story, but it's an interesting, like, the human element to the game thing, right? That whole angle. And I'm a big Anthony Jennings guy. I know a lot of people have written him off. I'm not there yet. I'm not telling you he's going to come out and get 15 sacks this season, but I still think he can add a key element to this defense. So he's somebody that I've been watching closely, and just kind of hearing his mindset on how he approached the last year was really fascinating.
Yeah. He is a guy you don't hear talked about a lot at all. Totally kind of a forgotten guy.
Right.
Another thing he talked about, and I was curious your take here, is that he's been in contact with Dont'a Hightower.
Yeah.
And that Dont'a's in shape and he's out there. And again, I don't know, because I think we spent a lot of last year talking about how it looked like he'd lost multiple steps, and was almost just playing himself off the field at times, and at times he looked, you could see flashes of his former self. Do you think they dust that one off at any point in time?
Maybe. It's not surprising that they're talking. It's not just a Patriots thing, just knowing Alabama and how that program works. All of the guys under Saban stay in touch, and specifically within their position groups. And when it comes to the Alabama linebackers, Dont'a Hightower is the godfather of that group. Like, any Alabama linebacker, they all look at Dont'a Hightower as the gold standard, and he's very good about being in touch with them and talking to them and giving them advice and hyping them up and all of that. So, Jennings and Hightower have been talking since well before Jennings got to New England. In terms of Hightower coming back, I don't know that he plays in the middle. What would be really interesting to me, right, is you bring him back and you put him on the edge, because
put him on the edge.
Excellent at that in his prime. If he's really in shape, right, he's still got the size to set that edge. We talked about Henry Anderson kind of playing in that role a little bit here early in camp. Dietrich Wise has been out, but he projects as a guy who could play in that role that Kyle Vinoy played last year. But I think Hightower in a sub role could still be a difference maker in that spot. So, a lot of people, I get asked all the time, Trey Flowers, is Trey Flowers coming back? I think, and I don't hate that idea either. I think it's the same role, right? People look at Trey Flowers and, they need that edge guy. Well, why would you bring Dont'a Hightower back? He was slow. No, bring him back in the role you're talking about, bringing Trey Flowers back in. I think that would be an excellent role for him if and when he comes back.
Yeah. I personally, I think I've always kind of in the back of my mind predicted that late in camp, just before the season, Hightower return. I think that's, that might already be a handshake agreement, because especially with a veteran like him, who's gone through all of his camps, who's earned it, he could easily just be getting a camp pass here. And the idea is he could be walking through that door. And I do think that is a role better suited for him.
The really interesting thing, and this is like me nerding out, and this is where Evan would normally roll his eyes. Let's see, the day before that first preseason game, when they announce the numbers and they do the rookie numbers and guys who are changing, Brian Waters. So Brian Waters was here was it 11? He was here in whatever year he was here. That one year he played guard and he was really good, and he wore 54. And then the next year was this sort of thing where nobody knew if he was retired or he was still a free agent. And it was 11 because it was Hightower's rookie year. He was drafted in 12, and Hightower wore 45 throughout the preseason, didn't switch to 54 until right before the regular season. And they asked him why, and he said 54 wasn't available until now. And you kind of read between the lines, Waters returning might have still been on the table. I think he ended up re-signing in Dallas in like October that year. But let's see if they give out 54, right? If they get, at the very least, if they give it out, that kind of, what's going on behind the scenes with Hightower. But if they don't give out 54, that should tell you him coming back is at least still on the table.
Again, I would welcome it in that role, but not much else. And bring Trey back too. I liked him. I like Trey Flowers.
I don't know about both. And I like Trey Flowers
I know,
too. Outside of, were you on the boat of every time it was like a 3rd and 2 and just get the stop against the run? And nope, we're going to put Trey Flowers in a shallow zone outside the numbers. Like Matt Patricia drove me up a wall putting Trey Flowers into shallow zones. But yeah, I like Trey Flowers too. I just don't know that there's room for both of them because I think they're playing the same role.
I was rooting for him. I was actually that was one of those guys where you don't want to see them, when they switch, locations, you don't want to see them fail just to justify having not given them the money. It actually bummed me out that he, ended up not in a great situation and underperformed that contract he signed with the Lions there, because he was a good guy and he was a terrific Patriot. And that last year he played here, he was dominant. So he was outstanding. Yeah. But you're right. You're not bringing both those guys back. I just do think there's that wink, wink Hightower agreement.